Welcome back to Lifting with Lions. That's 2 weeks in a row since our vacation and EMT break. We're doing great. Actually, to be honest, we're recording this the same night as the last episode.
Oof, there goes the magic.
I know. I'm sorry. I know. Life is all about movie magic, and I just ruined it.
They're like, Jared still has allergies a week later?
Yeah. Constant allergies. Actually, I was doing really well, but then I started eating crappy garbage foods because I went on vacation. That's what happens. You got to eat well. Are you
saying my smoked pork was garbage food?
No, you made great smoked pork.
What's wrong with you?
I'm sorry, but I don't really know what was in that sauce. It tasted great, though.
Yeah, it was good.
But that wasn't meant to be a segue. But it's a perfect segue because this week we're going to be talking about not eating garbage. And specifically, we're going to talk a little bit about a diet that you've probably heard of.
Little controversial,
and that's why we bring it up, because we like to stay controversial.
Yep.
That's right. That's what we're all about. So we're going to be talking about the keto diet.
It's funny because our show is so non-controversial.
It's really
true. We tiptoe around anything offending people with diets and stuff. But we are talking about the ketogenic diet today, or keto. And so, similar to Atkins and a bunch of other diets that are out there, keto's kind of, I don't know, it's touted as kind of a fad diet by a lot of people because it's very popular and a lot of people do it without really knowing exactly how to do it or what it is or the reasons for doing it. It's kind of like when you work at a restaurant and the girls come in and you've got a group of 8 girls who all say they're gluten intolerant. It's like, no, you're not. You can just tell me you don't want gluten.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but they're convinced that like all of their problems are related to gluten. And so they all go gluten-free. And so it's one of those things where a lot of people do it, and sure, it has a lot of positive effects, but not everyone that's doing it understands why they're doing it.
Yeah, so if you do it as a fad diet, then you could be doing it wrong.
Or you could be doing it right, but you should really understand why you're doing it if you're going to keep going. Mm-hmm. So keto, like how I mentioned at the beginning, is short for ketogenic. And the whole diet revolves around establishing a state within our body called ketosis. And so the goal of keto is to, kind of as it's described, is to switch our primary fuel source from carbohydrates to fats. And so we do this, I say we as in people in the diet. I'm not on keto. But you do this by pretty much restricting your carbohydrate intake to a very low amount, typically 20 to 50 grams per day. And a lot of people go as low as 20 and keep it there. And essentially what this does is, as explained on Healthline, I'm just going to use their paragraph on this because it's very clear in how they explain it. So a typical American diet consists of 50% or more carbohydrates, which convert to glucose in the body. Your cells burn that glucose as fuel. But when you switch to a very high-fat, low-carb diet, your body, by necessity, shifts away from glucose and instead uses fatty acids and ketone bodies for energy. This process is called ketosis, hence the diet's name. Close quote. So this kind of ties back initially for me into the unfortunate similarities that fat shares. So fats as a micronutrients shares with fat as an adipose tissue. So it would be a lot better if it was fat on your body and lipids or something. And even though they're very related and the same things, when people hear fatty foods, they immediately think unhealthy.
So what you're basically saying is there's a difference between having fat on your body and eating fats.
Yes.
They're completely different.
All through the late 90s and stuff, we saw these big things where it was revolving around campaigns saying that fatty foods make you fat, essentially. But before that, diets were really high fat. I mean, you go back to the 30s and people had significant amounts of lard in their diet, but they had a lot better heart health in a lot of instances than people did when they were on a lower fat but much higher sugar diet in
Right.
70s and 80s. So a lot of it is just people thinking that fat correlates with fat. But you have a lot of healthy fats and you have unhealthy fats. You have trans fats and saturated fats and polyunsaturated and unsaturated. And any balance of them can cause different effects on the body. And apart from trans fat, which is universally accepted to be detrimental to your health and illegal in most places to produce anymore, the others, the polyunsaturated, unsaturated, and saturated fats, even the saturated fats, which are typically touted as being unhealthy because they're from fatty animal products like pork and steak, even saturated fats can have healthy applications when they're in a balanced diet with a lot of other healthy fruits and vegetables and a sufficient amount of nutrients. And so it's not clear cut and black and white, fat is bad or fat is good. And so the keto diet is very, I would say almost alarming to some people because they get recommended it or a low carb, high fat diet, something similar by their doctor. And they immediately have sirens go off in their head and they go, whoa, but if I'm eating high fats, I'm going to get fat. That's not necessarily how it works because we've talked about it before. 1 gram of fat has 9 calories. 1 gram of carbs has 4 calories. So if you eat 100 grams of each, you're much more likely to gain weight with the fat diet, right? Because you're consuming more than 2 times as much calories for the same amount of grams.
Right.
But if you're consuming 50 grams of fats versus 500 grams of carbs, it's very different in the results at the end. With one of them, you have what is that? 450 calories. And with the other one, you end up with 2,000 calories. So it's about the calories for a lot of it, is that while fat may have more calories per gram, if you're not eating as many grams, it's not going to make you gain weight the same way. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So it's not better to eat 2,000 calories of sugar instead of 50 calories of fat.
Yeah.
So it's not just about what you're eating, it's about the amounts you're eating as well. And it's a lot easier to eat a lot of carbs than it is to eat a lot of fat. So if you eat just a small bowl of rice or something, and then you eat a side of vegetables with it, and you have some breakfast that's just cereal or granola or something, by the end of the day, you could be at hundreds of grams of carbs by just having that type of stuff for every meal. And so it's really easy to get really high up there in carbs. But I mean, how much avocado can you eat before it starts to become a little overwhelming?
Right.
So while it may be very calorie dense, you typically can't eat as much of the fatty food as you can of the carbs. So one way that the keto diet works, first of all, is just it has a lot of foods that are very satiating. So you get full from them very easily, whereas you wouldn't necessarily get full from a lot of high carb food. So one way the keto diet works is just by putting you in an environment where you're naturally consuming lower calories without even knowing it.
Yeah.
But it is possible to consume more calories, and we'll talk about that. But essentially, keto was first implemented in the 1920s as a form of treating kids with epilepsy. And it didn't really make a resurgence until recently. And I said it's similar to the Atkins diet. The Atkins diet started a long time ago, and it kind of got people hooked on dieting in general and trying out different ways of eating when a lot of people hadn't been varying their diets very much. Mm-hmm. But the keto diet has been around for a bit, and it's really popular among athletes and stuff and celebrities who constantly talk about how good it is. But just like everything we've talked about, it may be great for some people and not great for other people. So we're going to talk about that a bit and help people to understand whether or not it's something that's even worth pursuing for them.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of go back into the process of it, is that you are decreasing the amount of carbs you're eating and you're increasing the amount of fat. And so the method behind this is pretty much your body is looking for those carbs to fuel its energy levels, and it can't find them. And at first, it's not going to do anything. It's just going to wait for them. But after 3 weeks of not having it, it's going to have to get energy from somewhere else. And so it's going to start looking for energy in any source, which typically tends to be fatty acids and ketone bodies. And there's a lot of things that result from this. One thing that is really common that people see in research on keto is reductions in blood sugar and insulin levels. So when you switch to this, it can have a lot of health benefits that come with it. And so it's really helpful for people who are really obese because it can cause dramatic weight loss that just continues. And it can improve their blood sugar. It can improve insulin levels. So it's been used for people who are pre-diabetic or diabetic because you have to balance your insulin with your carbohydrate intake when you're diabetic. And so when you lower those carbs really low, it can make it maintainable in certain circumstances for certain individuals. But the problem with keto is that with other diets, when you screw up on the diet, it's mostly guilt that you feel. It's like, oh, I broke my diet. Oh, I went above my calories. And so you just feel bad about it. And it's kind of a mental health thing that comes down to dieting, right?
Yeah.
But with keto, there's a lot more consequence biologically that occurs when you break the diet. Because if it takes 3 weeks or so to enter this state, ketosis, and you are in that state and you're in it for 2 or 3 weeks, and then you screw up and you start eating a bunch of carbs for a couple days and binging, and you knock yourself out of that state you're in, you just screwed yourself up pretty royally because it took you weeks to get there. And I mean, it could have a lot of effects. It could result in rapid weight gain in kind of screwing up the pattern of weight loss that you have. It could spike your blood sugar and insulin levels, and it can just result in a lot of things happening. So there's a lot more consequences to breaking keto than there is to breaking a lot of other diets. And it's not really like, oh, I hold myself responsible. It's like, no, the diet's holding you responsible. If you break it, there's certain biological things that are going to happen.
Right.
So you have to be very diligent and determined to go through with it if you're going to get on a keto diet.
Yeah.
And another reason for this is because some people experience what's called keto flu. Have you ever heard of that, Jared?
I've heard of it.
So it's essentially just a lot of really negative side effects from going into keto that some people can have. And so constipation or nausea or really bad breath and muscle cramps. A lot of this stuff can occur in keto flu. And the most common way to get keto flu, from what I've seen with all the research I've went through, is by too quickly entering a restrictive diet.
Right.
So going from having a very normal diet to all of a sudden you're consuming 20 grams of carbs a day. And that can really mess your body up and how you feel. It's not necessarily going to kill you or anything or damage you, but it can make you feel terrible at first. So the way that people typically recommend to do it is to taper those carbs down over the course of a week or two until you're at your starting point of 50 grams and then eventually decreasing it to 20 grams or wherever you're trying to get to. So gradually lowering yourself into a restrictive zone rather than just cold turkeying it one day.
Yeah.
And getting super sick. But I feel like that's something that applies to pretty much everything we do, including exercising. You shouldn't just jump into it, right?
Right. Yeah. So I've actually, I've been visiting a nutritionist and I follow others that talk a lot about this type of concept, although they don't necessarily say the keto diet, but it's the whole concept of the basically sugar versus fats type of thing. And so if you don't mind, I'd love to just give it my own layman
Go
terms,
for it. Hijack it.
Jared breakdown.
Yeah.
Tenny explained it scientifically, and if you followed that or not, this is the really layman's terms way to put it that I've understood it. Basically, your body can either use sugar for energy as fat or fat for energy, one or the other. It will always choose sugar first, though, because it's more accessible to the body, right? And our society's full of tons of either sugar, like sugar put in your food, or things that turn into sugar, more or less. So, anything starchy, anything bread, anything like that. Eventually, that turns into a type of sugar that your body wants to use for energy. Now, if you're putting on fat, it could definitely be because you're eating, your body's storing it basically because the energy is so accessible, right? Because you've got lots of sugar in your diet, it has the excess and it says, I don't need this, I'm going to store it.
And don't just think added sugar with this either when Jared's talking about it, because it's the same thing. There's glucose in pastas and rices and breads and all these staples from all around the world. So this isn't just applicable to American society. This is pretty much every culture group revolves around a lot of these heavy carbohydrate foods.
Yeah. And again, I'm making this really dumbed down. So when I mean sugars, I don't mean like sugar cane and high fructose corn syrup. I'm talking about all of that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. We eat tons of that. It's really accessible to the body. You'll hear so many athletes like, well, actually, your wife was talking about it, how she knows some athletes that are like, before I do a race, I just drink a big Diet Coke because it just gives me energy fast. It's like, sure.
Or a straight Coke, yeah.
Yeah. It probably does do that. Yeah, I guess it would probably be whatever it is, Yeah. I guess it probably does do that, but is that really a great way to feed your body all the time?
Right. It's like, sure, you can get an energy spike from eating half a dozen Krispy Kreme donuts.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point of it. Your body can use this sugar.
Right.
When it comes to fat, your body uses the fat maybe more efficiently, but it won't use that if it has more accessible sugar in your body.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, most of our bodies aren't even accustomed to ever even using fat.
Yeah.
It'll use the sugar. And so there's a lot of negative effects of having a bunch of sugar in our system. What I hear a lot about is if you've heard the whole movement for gut health, there's so many microbiomes within your gut, and a lot of the bad ones thrive off of sugar in your system, and they can mess up your stomach, giving you allergies, messing up your immune system. Having a ton of sugar in your system isn't a great thing. And if that's all your body's getting, that's going to be another negative effect. So you hear of people that get on these diets like keto, like your wife, that say, I feel so much better. And one of those things could be just your gut health is getting better. Your body's getting a little better because it's not full of sugar. And so anyways, you go into this diet and all of a sudden your body has to make this giant switch because all of a sudden it's not getting all of its energy from sugar like it used to, right? And like you said, that's ketosis essentially.
Right.
Is your body's learning, all right, I got to learn to burn fat. But when it starts doing that, you're going to start losing weight because all of a sudden your body's not storing all of it. And if you're in a deficiency, hopefully you're actually burning a bunch of that fat. So that's kind of my understanding. I just wanted to point out the fact that a lot of what I've seen on social media is people being like, keto is only effective because you're eating less calories. It's
right.
like, that's not exactly the point. You're kind of missing the point if that's what you believe.
Yeah.
And I know there's studies all over the place. I've seen people post like keto is very dangerous, and also it makes your friends not want to hang out with you because your diet is so restrictive.
Right.
But that's not the point of these types of diets. The point is that you are teaching your body to use more healthy fats.
Totally.
Not just burn sugar. So anyways, that's the simple Jared breakdown.
Well, and I think in the simple Jared breakdown, you hit on something super important, which is kind of confounding variables where we have multiple things happening that you can't really attribute them all to one thing. And so let's take someone who never exercises and never leaves their house, right? Like they've been in a basement, haven't left the house in 6 months, right? In this scenario,
Right.
not once. And then they go out and they're severely depressed and they feel crappy all the time and they just feel terrible, right? And they go out and they start running outside and they run around the neighborhood for an hour every day. And suddenly they feel better, they feel healthier, their lungs feel better, they start to lose weight, their mood improves, they feel happy. You cannot say that all of those things are because of running.
Yeah.
Because if they've been inside for 6 months and they literally have not left the house, what's the likelihood of them having a vitamin D deficiency as well?
Right.
So maybe some of those mood improvements are because now they're getting a ton of vitamin D and their mood is improving. So you never know what is improving because of what. That's why it's really important to research, to really try to isolate stuff as much as you can to something controllable and keep everything else as something that you can manipulate. So you want everything to be in your control group, and then you want that one thing that you can manipulate to see a result. It's really hard to just look at anecdotal evidence and have someone who says, oh, wow, the diet worked great for me because I feel great. It's like, yeah, but that's not scientific proof. That's your experience of it. And while you might feel great, you don't know if that's because of the running or if it's because of the sunlight. And sure, your lungs might feel good because of the running, but your mood might feel good because of the sunlight. There could be a lot of different reasons that you're feeling a certain way on a diet. So just like you talked about, while you are having a lot more fats, you're also decreasing your added sugars a lot. So both of those are going to have different effects on your body. So it's really hard to pinpoint which is causing which.
Yeah.
So that's really important to note anytime you're going into a diet is before you make big claims that the diet solved X, Y, and Z, make sure that you're considering all the possibilities that other stuff could be influencing that as well. That's not just to keep us accurate in our reporting and also to help us be honest when we're recommending things to people. It's also to help us to maintain our healthy lifestyles. Because if you are in keto and you want to maintain the way you've been feeling, and you're saying, man, but I can't stop eating the same amount of fat, even though I really want to, because then I'll feel like crap. Maybe that's not necessarily true. Maybe you can tone out a bit, but you just need to keep the added sugar out of your diet.
Yeah.
So there might be really effective ways that you can keep yourself feeling great and maintain most of the benefits while still tweaking your diet away from what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it's just important to keep your options open, really, and look at it from all sides.
Yeah, another point I'd like to make that we've kind of implied, but I want to make it explicit, is that obviously we're not making this episode to try and push keto on everybody.
Totally.
Because if there was one diet that was just the greatest diet and it was scientifically proven, first of all, hopefully you'd already know about it. And secondly, Tenya and I would be on it.
I can just hear someone right now going, Mediterranean diet, bro.
Exactly.
It's like, no, not for everyone.
Yeah. So, but chances are you probably didn't know that much about the keto diet. Probably everything you knew about it was, again, from social media and somebody either posting saying, I lost 600 pounds because of keto. And
or
somebody
because
else
you knew someone who did it and you just have their one experience.
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
my grandma got way healthy on keto.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe it's the opposite. You've seen people post against it. It's so weird that people are like for or against
Keto
diets.
killed
like
my grandma.
Like it's a war. Yeah. Like, don't do keto because doctors have proven that it's unhealthy
it's like
and you'll
the
feel
vegan
sick.
versus carnivore diet thing on social media.
Yeah.
Where you just have these two extreme groups who sees everyone else as like pretty much a heathen against their diet religion.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you're a non-believer. Anyone that doesn't do the same thing I do is an idiot.
Yeah. So if you didn't know that, think about how many other diets are out there that you really don't understand.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of them are probably really fad diets that there's not much to understand about it.
Totally.
But
and a lot of them, I mean, with most things, I like to be skeptical until I see a reason otherwise.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to diets and stuff. I don't trust diets until I've looked into them.
Yeah. But there are diets to determine food allergies or just what's most effective in your body.
Or just to develop discipline.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's so many diets out there that, and again, we've talked about this earlier, diet doesn't always mean reducing your food intake to lose weight.
Totally.
I mean, there's probably a better way for you to eat. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, the average person could probably have a better diet.
Yeah.
There's something more efficient for them that's going to help them achieve their goals. So look more into these kind of things, Maybe keto is right for you. Look into it. Don't just slam the door on it.
Totally.
Like a lot of people do. And also decide if that's the most effective for you or if something's going to be better.
Yeah.
And then also it's important to break down, you put it so well, where the benefits are coming from, the benefit in keto for a lot of people might be losing weight, but for others, just having cut out the sugar is going to feel really
Totally.
good. And that applies for a lot of diets. There's so much research to be done. So if you have questions about other diets, we're happy to look into it.
Yeah.
And give you our 2 cents on it. But I mean, it'd be great if you had a nutritionist that that could help you understand the science behind how various diets work, or get a dietitian, they could help you out with that too. But overall, we want you to improve your health. That's why we're here.
Right.
But be educated, Don't just turn stuff down because somebody says something about it, and don't just jump on board without knowing what it's all about.
Totally. And kind of on that note, I just want to jump into the pros and cons of keto.
Yeah.
And what the general view of keto is among the scientific community. So the pros, as listed, and these are pulled from the Mayo Clinic. I like to use the Mayo Clinic a lot in Healthline because they cite everything.
Yeah.
If you go do an article on Healthline, they've got 100 citations on everything.
Yeah.
So they're very thorough in making sure that their information is coming from reliable sources. So that's why I like to use those two a lot. But the Mayo Clinic lists these as kind of a pros and cons list. For the pros, possible short-term weight loss, increased awareness of food and nutrient intake. So like we're talking about kind of being aware of what's going into your body and realizing I don't have sugar anymore. I do have fats. Not all fat is bad. Stuff like that. And then possible increased satiety and decreased hunger between meals. So a lot of these fatty foods can really satiate your body and help you stay fuller longer. Whereas you might eat a super high carb meal and then be hungry 2 hours later.
Yeah.
And then restrictive nature of diet usually encourages more home-cooked meals. So anytime you're doing one of these restrictive diets, it's not easy to eat out and eat fast food and break your diet. And that kind of coupled with the fear of getting out of ketosis, whether or not you can argue that fear is healthy or not, it's just knowing that there's a consequence, And that's not like someone established that to put people down in the diet. That's not in our control. Ketosis is not something we're manipulating. So if you have a fear of that, I mean, you need to always have a healthy mindset when you go into a diet, but you also have to really consider the consequences of what you're doing and take it seriously.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's like if you say that smoking is bad for your health and then someone gets offended by that, I'm sorry, but I'm still going to say smoking is bad for your health.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be controlled and have mental health crisis all the time if you make mistakes on a diet, but you also have to take it very seriously because it's your health you're talking about. So those are kind of the pros on it. And the biggest pro is honestly just weight loss. And I don't think that keto is very effective for most people who have a moderate to very light amount of weight to lose. If you need to lose 5 to 10 pounds, if you're someone like an athlete and you're just trying to get into a different weight division, I don't recommend keto. It's restrictive. It takes a lot of time. It's very hard to control everything. You're not going to be getting as much protein with other diets, which could be detrimental for something like a high performance strength athlete or something. And also maintaining that muscle mass as you lose weight. So for people who are just losing short amounts of fat or have really short-term goals, I don't really recommend keto. But I mean, look into it because some people do. That's just my opinion on it. And for people who are losing a lot of weight, 30 to 50 plus pounds, I think keto can be extremely effective because you can lose weight really reliably and really quickly. You feel full more, where a lot of people who have that much weight to lose really struggle with feeling full. When they diet, that's a very common struggle. And then it also is just really good to really learn how to regulate your diet, how to regulate your home meals, how to understand what you're putting into your body. And those benefits are even greater for someone who's been morbidly obese their whole life than losing the weight is.
Yeah.
Because that's going to help you really understand your diet in a way you never have before. And it's going to help you from ever avoiding getting that to that place again. And it's also going to help your kids because you're going to be able to raise your kids with a different mindset of food and what goes into your body. And so there's a huge domino effect of good things that can happen from becoming disciplined with your food.
And a lot of those could apply to a lot of diets too.
Totally, exactly. I mean, I first learned it when I tried Whole30 one time.
Yeah.
I wanted to do Whole30 with my wife because we thought it looked cool. And it didn't have a lot of health benefits for us. But what it did do is it really got us good at understanding how much sugar was actually in our food.
Yeah.
And this was years ago. But ever since then, I always am aware of the sugar I'm putting into my body. And sugar never tasted the same after Whole30. I did those 30 days and anything super sweet would just be almost overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so it was really good to just establish a healthy view of what was acceptable for a cheat day and what was unhealthy long-term binge behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really helpful for anyone. Yeah. But just like anything, there's cons as well. So the cons are rapid weight loss might initially come from water loss and not be indicative of true weight loss. So this is big with any diet, not just keto. So I think this could be a con on any diet, is that when you're losing a lot of weight quickly, someone will say, wow, I lost 8 pounds in a day. It's like, yeah, but a lot of that could be water weight for who knows whatever reason.
Yeah.
This is how a lot of people cut weight. I mean, when I did jujitsu and I competed in jujitsu and I wanted to lose weight really quickly, you almost do a really unhealthy form of dehydration because you're trying to drop water weight as well for the weigh-in.
You just sit in a dehydrator.
Yeah, you go to the sauna, you don't drink a lot of water, you change your sodium intake. Yeah. So you do a lot of stuff to just drop water weight. And it's not necessarily healthy, but it is effective.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can do that involuntarily, especially since most people are terrible at drinking water anyway.
Yeah.
And so just be aware of water weight fluctuation. This is with all weight loss. When we're talking to people and they're trying to lose weight and they're saying, man, I was almost down to my weight goal and then I jumped up 2 pounds in a day, but I did nothing wrong. It's like, right, but did you look at how you were drinking, what the temperature was like outside, if you were walking more? Because you may just be retaining water. Mm-hmm. You may have drank a lot more water the day before and that retention of it is jumping up on the scale when it's not actually you putting weight back on.
Right.
So you have to be patient. And when you're losing weight, look at the overall downward or upward trend.
Right.
And the keto flu is a con that's possible. So ease yourself into it and don't do it super quickly.
It's probably good advice for most diets anyways.
Totally. Anything that's extreme that you're starting that's new, ease yourself into it.
Yeah.
Cold turkey's not good for most things.
Yep.
Increased risk of kidney stones, liver disease, and micronutrient deficiencies. And that's not super prevalent. They're pretty low rates of kidney stones and stuff. Most people already are predisposed to them. And this can just kind of, what's that word called? Amplify, I guess, the risk for it.
Yeah.
You know the word I'm looking for, though.
Yeah, I can't think of it either.
Lack of fiber may lead to constipation. And then...
Although keto is not against fiber.
It's not. It's just that really high fiber foods that we're used to eating are typically found in a lot of carb-heavy foods.
Right. Like fruits and stuff.
Right. And that's the big thing is that you eat a lot of... And this is where the final diet con is that you... there's a lot of concern for deficiencies of vitamin C, K, A, fiber, and folate.
Yeah.
Because we're getting these from our fruits and vegetables, but you don't want to go above those carbs, and fruits and vegetables are carbs.
Yeah.
So in keto, you can eat leafy greens, you can eat bell peppers, you can eat this stuff, but you have to watch how many carbs in them. And because of this, you typically avoid sweet fruits and tropical fruits and stuff.
Right.
Because they have a lot of sugar in them, natural sugar, but sugar nonetheless. Mm-hmm. And so even though it might not be unhealthy for you, it's not something you want to eat on keto because it can really screw up the state of ketosis.
Yeah.
And the biggest issue with kind of breaking the rules of keto is not that you're going to keel over and die because it's killing your immune system or something. It's because you're eating high fat food, which is really high calorie in and of itself. And so kind of the safety barrier against gaining weight from that is that you're in ketosis. But if you're still consuming a really high fat diet and you're not in ketosis, you're a lot more likely to gain weight.
Yeah.
So it's important to really eat low fruits and monitor what types of vegetables you're eating. Just look up a list of what foods are keto and what foods aren't online if you're interested in doing it. And just try to incorporate foods that have a variety in the vegetables that you eat so that you're still getting a lot of nutrients. And consider using a multivitamin.
Yeah.
Just really try to avoid being in any deficiencies and doing something that would harm you.
Yep.
So it's very possible to be keto and not have a deficiency if you're careful about it.
Yeah. Again, same can be said for a lot of diets. Eat what you can, but supplement where you can't.
Yep. And I'm not going to go into the details on these, but there's 4 different keto diets. There's the standard keto diet, which is typically 70% fat, 20% protein, 10% carb. So that's the main one people are doing. Mm-hmm. Then there's a cyclical keto diet, which is 5 days on keto and then 2 carb days, 5 days on keto, 2 carb days. And then targeted ketogenic. So this adds carbs only around workouts for like loading. Carb loading and stuff. And then there's a high protein keto diet, which is 60% fat, 35% protein, 5% carbs. So there are definitely keto diets that may have very effective results. Maybe they're not quite as effective as the standard keto diet, but they're a lot more helpful for someone like a strength athlete to have that high protein keto diet, or for a athletic performer to have that targeted keto diet. So you're still in keto, but you're adding carbs around workouts for performance. So there's a lot of options if people are really interested in going into it. But I mean, that's keto basically. And we're going to have a couple more episodes on keto because my wife is currently on keto. And for her, which I think is similar to a lot of people, it's kind of a last ditch resort thing. Mm-hmm. She's tried tons of diets. She's tried simple, just calorie deficit. And I mean, you can say all you want that, oh, you're actually probably eating more than you think, but I am phenomenal at counting calories. And I've counted every calorie she's eaten at times to help her out with it. And she still is not having any luck losing weight. Yeah. And so it's not just so simple as cutting calories, putting calories on, and then you'll gain or lose weight reliably. Sometimes there's other stuff going on, hormonal things, thyroid imbalances, who knows what's going on, that causes weight retention of any kind. And so for a lot of people where other diets don't work, keto is the breakthrough. And so for my wife, she couldn't lose weight no matter what. And she finally decided to try keto. And it was hard and it was super restrictive. And she's still in it right now, but she's been doing it for 2 months. Yeah. 2 or 3 months. And she's lost 30 pounds. Yeah. Like reliably. Like she's just losing it steadily. And she's never been able to lose that weight in years.
Yeah. She can't even fit in her clothes anymore.
Yeah. None of them. I know. Because I'm constantly buying new ones now.
Yeah. And she complains about you buying new clothes.
I know. Because then she's going to need new ones in another 2 months.
Yeah. How awful would that be?
Terrible.
Having to go clothes shopping.
Awful. I'd like to say I complain about it, but I like clothes shopping.
Yeah. No, so I actually like it.
It's my guilty pleasure is to buy clothes for her. Yep. That's what I enjoy doing. When we were dating, I'd just be like, want to go clothes shopping?
And she's like, no.
Yeah. I don't know why, but it's so fun to me. But, so I've got no problems with it. But for her, it's been incredibly effective. And so she's actually going to be on one of the podcast episodes and kind of talk about her experience with it and the hard things for her and how it's been good in a lot of ways and just the stuff that's helped her to stay positive in it. And also stay positive in trying to find a diet for so long when nothing's worked for years.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's got a lot of good experience on that I don't have.
Yeah.
Because I can pretty much do any diet and it works for me.
Yeah.
And so she's going to be a really good person to hear her experience on. And while I don't put a lot of weight on anecdotes, and I like people to look into stuff scientifically, it is good to hear other people's opinions on how it has worked for them. Yeah. Because it gives you a good viewpoint on what's possible, whether or not it's reproducible in a lab setting,
Yeah.
replicable. So
So
yeah.
look forward to that. That's going to be pretty cool.
It's going to be good. But the big thing is she's going to be in keto, but not forever. Eventually we are going to need to transition her out of keto. And that's what we were talking about, is we still want to stay in a really low added sugar, low carb diet, but with more protein, some more carbs around workouts. So transition her out of that into something healthier. But it's kind of a process that we're doing to try to figure out what's making her feel good and whether or not it's keto.
Yep.
So that we can produce a maintainable and enjoyable diet at the end of keto. So for me, keto is not something that I think would be very effective. If I did do it, it would be a mix between high protein and targeted. It would probably be a very high protein diet with carbs targeted around loading before workouts.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of options you could do for people who are going keto. But for me, where I'm already sub 10% body fat and doing strength performance and stuff in bodybuilding, it's not necessary for my goals, really.
Yeah.
And so I could see some people who really want to do it because it makes them feel great, some pro athletes and stuff, and more power to them. But I don't think they are the demographic that is going to benefit the most from it.
Right.
So if you had a hard time losing weight and you have a lot of weight to lose and you just can't figure anything else out, keto really could be for you. You just have to stay positive, look into it. And if you're going to do it, I mean, there's no harm for most people in most circumstances for trying something once
Yeah.
and seeing if it does work. But if you're going to do it, just be determined about it and be really disciplined. And I mean, what you're guaranteed to get out of it is at least more discipline than you had before. And what you could get out of it is an entire life change. So look into it if you think it's for you, and stay tuned for the other episodes of Keto when we have my wife on.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Tenny. I think it's been a really cool episode.
Thanks, Jared, for putting everything into layman's Jared terms.
Yep, that's what I'm here for.
I forget sometimes that some things don't make sense if you haven't heard them certain ways before.
Yeah, well, again, I'm the beginner, but I've been looking into things too, and I hope that you guys are as well. Research things on your own. That's what we really want you to learn, is that you can learn more. You can research these things and you can understand them more deeply. We're about out of time though, so thanks again for listening. This is Lifting with Lions, and we will see you on the next one.